Hey, this is Paul Payton with Focal Splash, and so this tutorial here, we're going to put the young married couple into this beach scene. Beach scene was chosen by the bride to be put into, and we do notice that the lighting is going to be an interesting thing to try and fix and change. And so it really looked like a good challenge and some fun. So I said, okay, well, let's do it. Let's adjust the lighting and adjust the colors and contrast and do it all and show people how to do it. Not so that you can do the same thing I do, but that you get the idea that you can do it. Just recently, I came up with a kind of a motto about Photoshop. Someone once said, if it looks right, it is right. And I used to have that as a motto, kind of an idea, that you just think about. So, if you make a mistake or you paint something in and it wasn't there before and whatever happens there, you can say, well, it looks right. Well, in Photoshop, if it looks right, it is right. It doesn't have to be exactly right as long as it looks right. Because what are we doing here? We're working with pixels. So my latest motto, one I just thought of, and you guys can say, that's a dumb motto, don't use that if you want. But my latest motto is, it's just pixels. I'm really not cutting out this dress out of the background. It's just pixels. It's colored dots. And you can color the dots any way you want. You can shape them and change them and add dots here and remove dots there. And as long as the dots they represent the image that you're trying to create, well, then you got it. So going into selected mask now. That was the quick select tool, by the way. I'm going to select the mask, and we're going to continue with the quick select tool. I press W, press R for the, yep, that one. Okay, let me just think. Refine edge, R, refine edge. But this one is W for the quick select tool, I'm guessing. All right, so if you press Q, you got the wrong one. So Alt, I'm holding Alt here, and I'm just going to try and remove some of that and add a little bit on the edge back, because that's her hair. And if it looks right, it is right, right? So that doesn't look right yet. Hit X, and it'll show you what's behind it. You can see that her hair comes down like this. We could add that or not, however we feel like. If we want that much of her hair there, we can add it in. I'm going to keep it like that. Hit X here and see this, and that looks fine. Just tap that and see what we get there. This is going to have to blend in with the background too. So hitting R for the refine edge tool. I'm going to go down the edge of her hair here. It's going to pick up little hit X, the hairs and things like that. It could pick up some of those just to make it look more realistic. And in here, we'll just paint in here and remove some of that color. Now along the edge here, you notice that when I use the quick select tool within the main Photoshop window, it might create an edge like this. But if you hit W here, get the quick select tool inside select and mask, sometimes you just get a better result. So going along the inside edge here, selecting this, and give it a second, and then hitting Alt, and then going along the outside edge, gives the quick select tool within select and mask a chance to look at it. And it's just a better tool. Inside select and mask. Some people are still fighting about, oh, we like the old refine edge tool better. And really, everything is really just what you're used to. Just about everything in life is going to be, it was easier because you knew how to use it. Refine edge right here. Let's just see what it picks up on that. And right along this edge. All right. And then quick select tool again, selecting inside the line. There's other ways to handle this, but okay. Takes a little time sometimes. And then going and selecting inside the line. I'm going to change this setting over here right quick. But going ahead and making this what I think is a better selection. And the image is fairly large. That's why it's taken a little while to make these quote-unquote quick select changes. All right, and then right here, just go like that, and you can see, I don't know if you can see it in the video if the resolution is good enough, but that line is diminished quite a bit. And I'm just going to leave that, and this is black, so the line isn't going to be an issue. I'm going to hit the brush tool, B for the brush tool, hold down Alt. Actually, make the brush tool a little bigger with the bracket keys. Hold down Alt and just get rid of that like that. All right, checking his hairline out. Not much going on there. Maybe right here, holding Alt. We don't need this green. I can zoom in and hit brush tool and Alt and make his hair shape the way I want. Because it's kind of hard to tell where his hairline is in that dark area. I think his head should be a little more round, so just going to add a little bit here. Right? That's the version of the motto that says if it looks right, it is right. And that could be trees back here. You know, I could have gone over the edge. I did a little bit, so I'll go ahead and take some away because I like the shape it'll give me. All right. So why we have this feathered edge here is because we have some feathering out here. So let's feather it a little bit more. Get rid of the contrast. I don't need that. Put a radius at 2 and see what we get. That's at 1 pixel. Get 2 pixels. That's a pretty good amount of feathering. Let's bring the feathering back. All right, let's add it back. Let's go to 1 pixel and then just bring this edge in. Bring it in all the way. Crazy. Yep, that's not going to work. We don't want to bring the edge in that much anyway. So feather it a little bit more. There we go. All right, and so feathering, what you want to do is kind of match the feathering with the lines that are in the image. If you look here, you can see that this is supposed to be a solid straight line. I mean, this is a hard cut line. It's just white and then the coat. So this should be, but it looks a little fuzzy. It looks a little blurry. Well, you want this line out here to kind of match the blurry level of these lines in here. Because if this line is super sharp, if that line is really, the feather on it is 0, and it's real sharp, it doesn't match that. It's crispy. The cutout shouldn't be crispy, right? If the other lines aren't crispy. Crispy is a new term that I just created for Photoshop. If you're interested in all the terms a dictionary of the terms that I use. Kidding. All right. So that I think is going to be a good enough selection. We can mess with the mask later and hit OK. All right, so we have that selection. I'm going to hit V for the move tool and just grab this right here and bring it over to Sandy Beach Sunset and drop it in. All right, Sandy Beach Sunset. Now, here we have some choices. I'm going to hit Control Z. We have some choices with this. This image size. Oh, okay, that was interesting. Image size is only 2200 by 14. So we can bump this size up. Go ahead and resample and bump it up to 300. Now this background image would be 9,000 pixels, so we don't really want to do that. I don't think we're going to print at 20 by 30. Let's say we're going to print at something more realistic, like 14 by 11, and that would be 10 by, so it's going to chop some off if we do that. But we're going to leave it right there. 4,000 pixels across is good. What's another number here? 12 by 18, which is really a 4 by 6. So really we're looking at this, and I'm going to leave it right there. That's plenty of pixels. Hitting OK. All right, now Control 0 will bring it all fit on the screen. Go back here with the Move tool, drag this and select it and drop it in here. Okay, they're still pretty big, which is fine. I'll make them a little bit smaller to fit them into the scene. But so here we have it. Control T. Actually, I've been liking to do this. That's not even good grammar, but convert for smart filters. That way, if I want to make them bigger or something, that it's not going to lose pixels. So Control T. You know, should I show you that? Maybe in another tutorial I would show you why I would say so. use this. Yeah, I'll show you that later if you want. Just comment and say, why would you use smart filter to resize something? All right, so here we have it. This is the original position that they were placed in when I saw the image initially. And there's a few things going on here. First of all, they look like they're floating on the sand. There's no shadows, and that's going to be something we want to fix. Secondly, the light in the image is fairly yellow. And the dress here is white. Here's a yellow light here. You can see the white here is not white. So, but the shadows are bluish. You know, you can see, let's just zoom in here. I don't know if you can really see that. Here's a shadow, and it's kind of blue. And here's the bright sunlight from the sun is kind of yellow and white. And so we want to match that. And then the contrast, like this is black. The shadow down here is black. So the contrast is pretty contrasty in this image. So what we want to do is, I like to create, this is a little bit advanced, but I'll create an, I could do it that way. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to create the action. I'm just going to show you. So hit adjustment layers and click threshold. All right. So why did I put a black and white layer in here? Well, a threshold makes everything either black or white, not grayscale or anything. It's just either going to be black or white. So what we do is we go like this and we see where the brightest points in the image, or actually where the darkest points of the image start up. See right here, we already have some black coming into the image, so that's clipped. And then, so we got black here, and what do we have coming in here? What's that? That is the top of his head, right? So he's got black hair and the black. So blacks are coming in right at the same time as the rest of the image, so they look pretty good on the black side, on the dark side of the image. And then as we go towards white, all the way to white, and they look like they're coming in at the same time as the white. The white's in the image. So her bright dress is the same as the bright sea foam. So really, they match contrast pretty good. Okay, so why do they look like they don't really fit the scene? Well, a couple of ways to handle this. First way, we could, I've seen this done, we could grab this image, just make a new layer, and go to Filter, Blur, and then Average. Right? And now this is the average color of all the colors in that layer, the background layer. We can put this above them, change it to color, and then bring it down to about 25%. So it's adjusting the colors of everything in the image to that average color. So now, I don't really like the effect that it's giving here, but you can see they're pretty much averaged into the image here. That's what they were before, and that's what they are now. Do you like that? Nah. That's one way some people do things. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go ahead and delete the threshold layer. We don't need that anymore. So what's another way to do it? Well, another way to do it would be to assume that the shadows are yellow and that the highlights, I'm sorry, the shadows are blue and the highlights are yellow. So let's go to create a color balance layer. Right? With the color balance layer, we have three sections here. We have shadows, highlights, and midtones. So if we want to change the midtones to make the overall image color, we can do that there. Let's look at shadows. Let's add a little bit of blue in it. And first of all, we're going to clip it to just them. This so it only affects that layer. So let's just zoom in a little bit. Take a look at what we're doing. A little bit of blue in the shadows, right? And then in the highlights, let's take that blue out and put a little yellow in the highlights. Okay, we have to realize also that the light is coming from behind them. So, but we're going to assume that the photographer had a flash over here. You've seen those dramatic shots where there's flashes used in a sunset scene. So I'm thinking warm them up a little bit more here, just a little bit. The green is, I don't like that color, and you don't need any red. So this is another way to do it, where you can adjust the color of the highlights and the shadows and preserve luminosity. Let's put a little bit more blue in the shadows. Something like that. All right, do they still look like they fit? No, they don't. So let's try another way. There's a third way, and it's even more automatic. So I'll go ahead and turn this layer off. See, we have, that's what we did. Kind of like it. And that's what they were before. They don't fit at all like that, but they start to fit more like that. So let's turn that off for now, and I'll just save that there. And instead of that, I'm going to go to click on this layer and hit Control J. I like to make a copy to save it, right? And image adjustments, and not working because it's a smart object, right? So I just turned it from not being a smart object anymore. I think let's just say make it a smart object, and then right click here, and rasterize layer would be the way to stop it from being a smart object. So then we can apply this adjustment, color match. It's in image adjustments, color match, and we're going to match the color to the sandy beach background like that. Let's try background 2. Yeah, you know, and of course that looks perfect, right? No, see, there's lots more color saturation here. That's something we'll look at in a little bit. Than in their image. So fade it down to 50. That's kind of pretty, right? Space and then command. You can zoom in here. That's kind of pretty. It's a little too saturated, I think. I tend to find that 75% will give you a color match. You know, it's really all going to depend on what the colors are in the image, but great. Hello. It's just zooming in and out on its own now. So let's zoom in a little bit. I think that color match looks pretty good. I mean, you can see the yellows and the kind of the reds in her cheeks. Looks like the sunlight's bouncing off the sand, and over here we have the blue. You know, we didn't add the blue. Remember, we turned that off. But color match is adding it for us. You can go with color intensity. You know, if we wanted to add more or take it away. Yeah, but for now, I'm just going to leave that. I like to leave these only if I need to do I change those. But 75%, I think I like it. Okay, so let's just look at the difference of what we have here. So with the color balance layer, we had that effect. That's interesting. That's where I went with the color balance. And then with this, I think it's a totally better way. Let Photoshop, for this image, let Photoshop handle the color matching. Wow, okay. Thinking that's pretty good. Now, are they a little big? They're a little big. I like my subjects to be big in the image. I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off. It'll just save it there. I like the subjects to be big in the image. But in this case, it's just unbelievable. So I'm thinking like that. All right. And hit enter. And let's hit C, because that will tell me where the 2/3 line is. I'm not actually going to crop, but they're on the 2/3 line basically. So I can hit B. Now I can escape, I'm sorry, and then hit B for the brush tool. Hit V for the move tool and select them, that's fine, and just arrow over 2 or 3 times and get them right on the right on that 2/3 line. All right, so they're matching a whole lot better. I'm just looking at that going, yeah, you know, they're matching pretty good. So let's do this. Click right here and add a layer. There are pretty harsh shadows here. So let's try and match those. The shadows are going this way from the sun, and then they're going this way from the sun. You can see how that shadow, you may not be able to see that close. You see the shadows are angling in this direction. But where they are, the shadows should be coming pretty straight. Maybe just slightly in this direction. So how are we going to do that? Well, one easy way to do that would be to go ahead and create a selection by holding the command key and then clicking on them. See, now there's a selection, and you're actually on this new layer. And look at the colors that I have. I'm going to hit D to default the colors, and I'm painting in black with Alt Delete. Alt Delete will paint with the foreground color, or yeah, Alt Backspace if it's so there, like that. Now that's perfect, right? And then I'm going to drag this below and hit Control T. I'm going to get rid of the selection, Control D. So when I hit Control T, I'm actually transforming this black layer that I have here. Just going to bring it down like this. Of course, you know, it's not perfect, but it'll be close enough here in a second. Okay, Control T. Holding the command key, you can warp this. This is definitely not going to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be. I'm going to hit command again and just warp this a little bit up to here. I probably didn't even need to do this. And then hit enter. Change the opacity on this so that it matches. So when it matches this, that's about where we want it to be. Right? And since it didn't really work the way we wanted to, I'm going to paint with black with a fairly hard brush. So hardness, you can change this hardness a lot of ways, but I'm going to put the hardness right about there, hitting enter, and zooming in. Make the brush a little smaller, just tapping in a few places where I think there's definitely going to need to be some shadow, right? Something like that. Definitely, why wouldn't there be shadow right here? And then going up like this. Right? A little bit of shadow on the edges here. Make sure there's some shadow there. And I think, you know, we're going to be good enough. Now this shadow's a little darker and the shadows are blue, right? So it's going to be interesting to change the color of black to blue. So let's go ahead and create a new layer above it. Holding Alt and clicking between the two layers will make a clipping mask. And I'm going to see what happens if I go ahead and create color And see, I'm going to see what happens. You think I'm a Photoshop expert? This is how we do it, man. We play. Right? And then look here. Let's see. Just see what happens. Nothing happens. Can't change black to blue, dude. Luminosity. Interesting. Okay. So, first, change the luminosity of that shadow. And then secondly, color. Someone's going to say, what is he doing? That's okay. And then we can change it to blue. I don't know if you can see that, but the luminosity of black is black. You can't really change the color of black, right? But if you change the luminosity down to something that you can change the color of, see, now we have, you see that shadow right there and this shadow right there? We're pretty much the same color. I think that's pretty cool. All right. There is one thing though, and I just noticed it about this. Let's go ahead and click here. We're going to paint, since it's clipped, I'm going to paint blue right over this whole thing. Right? And then this luminosity, I'm going to paint right over this whole thing. Both of these are clipped to that, so it won't affect anything unless it's on this layer. And the reason I paint it over like that is because I need to change the shadow. You see, notice that behind them, the shadows are going in this direction. Well, you can't really see with a big old brush like that. The shadow is going this way, right here. And the shadow back here is going this way. So really, that shadow is too small, right? If, they're blocking the sun here, so really the shadow is going to be coming like this and like that, I'm thinking, because the sun is small and behind them, and it's going to cast a shadow that makes sense. There's a wide angle lens we're using here. Okay. Now the shadow would be straight pretty much, not curvy like I made. Now, somebody who knows more about art and knows more about things like that will tell me that I did that wrong, and it is more power to them to go ahead and do that. It's okay. All right, so I'm going to create another layer right here and clip it in. It's going to automatically clip because it's within those clips, those layer masks, those clipping masks. So, and then I'm going to paint with 100% black, because notice that there is a black edge here on all of these shadows, and even in the lines here. So this shadow doesn't really fit yet. So let's see what happens. This is one way to do it again. I'm not painting anything. I'm painting with the brush, and I'm clipping, painting with black at 100% normal. Wow. Oh, the luminosity is set by the layer above it. Boom. So let's see what happens now. And no. And oh yeah, look at that. I'm actually changing the color. So let's do this instead. We're going to unclip this by holding Alt and clicking between them. So now it's not clipped. See, there we have color. And then Control A was selected all, and just delete and get rid of what's on that layer. And now I can paint some grass here. I didn't notice. I'll have to fix that too. But now I can paint with black. And now that I can paint with black, I've changed my mind again. Bad. Okay, so clicking on this layer, actually staying on this layer and making a selection on that layer by hitting Command and clicking on it. So we have a selection. I'm going to again paint with black. So hitting Alt and Delete will paint with the foreground color. So now it's black. And then I'm going to just go ahead and hit Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Oh, I'm sorry. Control D to deselect the selection, and then filter blur, Gaussian blur, and make the blur big enough so you can see it around the edges, like that. Something like that, and we're going to leave it somewhere right in there because that's what I think it should be. And with the move tool, V for the move tool, I'm going to just drop this down like that. It might be a little harsh. I can change the opacity. So what did I do? I messed up here because now they have lines. Just look at, they have a shadow right here. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Well, how easy is that to fix? You could use the eraser tool or just put a layer mask on it and paint with a brush. Go ahead and make it a big brush. I'm going to put my brush softness back to 0 because that's where I normally keep it, and make the brush bigger and just paint away all this extra shadow that wouldn't be there and doesn't make any sense. And then here, you're not going to have shadow on top, even up here, right? Something like that. Just paint away the parts that don't make sense. And you can look at the layer mask by hitting Alt and clicking on the mask and just see that, you know, there it is. All right, so now there's a shadow below them. Now zoom out. Does that look right? No, it looks a little hard still. So not control, Z, I'm going to zoom in here. Yeah, that looks a little fake, doesn't it? So I can click on this and I could just go back to filter, blur, go to Gaussian blur again, and add a little bit more blur to that shadow. I'm liking that. I'm gonna, one more step. You know, like, let's go with 9. Yeah, that's good. All right. Shadow's a little too perfect though, isn't it? All right. So, what do we got? We have them placed in the image with a nice, somewhat feathered selection. So this doesn't look unrealistic. Not to me anyway. All right, and this is a little unrealistic here, but this looks fine. Wait a minute, we still have some shadow out here. Clicking there, make sure I'm painting with black. Getting rid of that shadow. What in the world? There's no shadow out there. All right. So his edge here looks a little funky. So painting on, clicking here, which is that, adding a layer mask and making the brush smaller so you have more accuracy, and just painting away stuff that doesn't make sense. But his pants were out there. Well, that's okay. It doesn't need to be out there, right? Now that line that I just did doesn't make me too happy because it's feathered too much. So if you make the brush smaller, you can actually reduce the feather. Hitting X to change to painting with white. Right. All right, so I like that better. Okay. Now the tutorial is going to get really long if I show you how I clean up everything. I would go down there with the clone stamp tool and clean up that grass. X to paint with black. Okay. I'm on the wrong layer. Paintbrush. Whoops. The Control Z key is a very good friend of mine. Okay. I'm going to leave that like that. And like I said, down here, well, what's on her face? Okay, that's on my screen. Down here, clone stamp or the spot healing brush, clicking here, and I'm painting on the layer mask. And I'm painting on the layer mask. Thank you. And just, you can heal these grass. If you have to, like you see it blurred there, you can hit the clone stamp tool and make a hard edge. Clone stamp tool is too See, notice it's white there instead. The clone stamp tool is very literal. The J for the healing brush is less literal, more blending. And sometimes you need literal because if you try and blend, the edge will get blended and it'll look blurry. I'm doing what I said I wasn't going to do. You can stop watching if you want. Or you can tell me, hey, that was cool. Those are your choices. Either stop watching now or tell me. Control Z, I cut the edge there. Stop watching now or make a comment that says, hey, that was cool. Thank you for continuing. Go ahead and stop right now. Make that comment. I'm just kidding. I'm not a comment hog. I just, I like to hear that somebody's paying attention and somebody enjoyed what I did. So clicking here, just clone stamp that. There you go. So I got rid of the grass that's there. Looking at the image, I think the image blends a lot better. I could be totally wrong. Someone's going to tell me what I did wrong. Oh, there is something. Oh boy. Now, right or wrong, don't know. But let's try something, okay? I'm going to make another layer on top of it. Command, click, right? Make a selection. And then on this layer, I'm going to paint with white. So if you hit Command and delete, it will paint with the background color. So I could change it to foreground color and then paint, or just paint with the background color. Just like that. And I'm going to drop this down below the layer. And then, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to see if this will work. Control D to get rid of the selection, and then filter, blur, Gaussian blur. This is just a just a test to see if we can get something. Okay. Spacebar and Command, so I can zoom in a little bit. It's interesting. We've blurred the edge, so there's a little bit of a halo around him, which is, you know what, kind of what would happen. Not quite like that, but kind of what would happen if they were standing in the sunlight. I'm gonna go with that number right there, 9 something. All right, let's just zoom a little bit and see there's that halo. And of course, you can't have the halo messing with the shadow, so clicking here, layer mask, painting with the brush with black. Make the brush a little bit bigger and make sure we're not haloing the shadow away. Right? So first step, get rid of the halo around the shadow. All right, so I kind of like that. I'm going to try something really cool and crazy. Like I'm always cool and crazy. But I'm going to make another selection. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and create another layer. And then make a selection from them, right? And then go to select, modify, and feather 5 pixels. Let's go ahead and OK. So it feathered that by 5 pixels. And then on this layer, what I want to do is feather the outside edge so that more light is coming around their edge. So how do I do that? I'm sorry, Command J. All right, and then turn this layer off. Did that work? Yeah, it did. Look at that. Their edge is feathered and the white is showing through. Huh. I kind of like it. So let's do this. Let's turn that layer back on. And I'm going to just decrease the opacity of the underlying layer. That'll reduce the effect that we had. Something like that. All right, so is that great? I don't know, but when you look at it, it gives them a little bit of a halo on the inside, around the edges. Something unique. I just tried it and I've never tried that before, and you are welcome. But here you have it. I am done. If you have any questions, let me know. There's something else that could be done. There's always something else, right? Let's do this. Create a curved adjustment layer and bring it, put it, nope, on the group. We're going to clip it to the group, and I'm going to bring it down. Why? Because I just realized that they were a little bright, because they're standing here in the shadow of that sun. And, you know, we have a flash on them and this sort of thing. But I think their color is going to match a little bit better there. All right, and since the white is outside of that, it didn't get adjusted. And that's about it. If you'd like to know more about Photoshop, and you want me to show you, after this, who knows if you want me to show you anything else, you can reach me at Focal Splash at YouTube or Facebook. Thank you very much.